Oh, hello everyone, and I'm Martin Wiech. Oh, whoa, there was a lot going on this morning, trust me, and I'm sure all of you have something going on too. So welcome to Spiritually Speaking. My name is Martin Wiech, and I welcome all of you. And I'm really excited today, I have to admit, because I'm very blessed to know these wonderful people in my life. I have to admit, I always dreamed about being around. Not that I wasn't as a kid, Mom and Dad, but right now there's just this wonderful people in my life that I'm so excited about. And in particular today, the gentleman I have on, Joseph Culp. I met him actually 2 months ago and have been working with him on this performance piece that I did yesterday actually. And the whole work was just so inspiring to me, and I've done a lot of spiritual work in my life. But this work took me to a depth that I've never, ever experienced. Really, it took me there. So I asked him if he would be on the show, and he said yes, which I'm very grateful. And I'm going to let him really talk about it, because he knows it. It's his life. He lives it. And he has a workshop called Walking in Your Shoes, which is phenomenal. And to me it is a spiritual, certainly, and we'll talk about this, a spiritual practice, because I've always heard, don't judge somebody until you walk in their shoes. And this is just like such an incredible experience. So enough about me, let's just go right to Joseph. Joseph.
Always a good thing to do.
Right, exactly right. When in doubt, go to right.
Go to the
so
one.
Joseph, just kind of lead us in a little bit. You know this, you know what it's about. So can you just give us a tidbit, a little background?
Surely. Walking in your shoes is essentially a body-mind process by which one uses their natural gift for spontaneous empathy and learns how to use that to sort of temporarily dissolve the personal immediate sense of self, ego, I, and embody other people and other states and other modes of being. And that sounds pretty far out there. And the fact is, it is, and yet it's very practical, right. and it's repeatable. And Walking in Your Shoes has been developed over the past 20 years by myself and a number of other artists and psychologists. And we found it to be a very powerful practice, not only for the therapeutic model, where people learn how to use the process to actually help each other become more fully who they are.
Right.
But also for artists, for the creative world, which is primarily what my workshop is involved in. Walking in Your Shoes, again, if I were to describe it, and it's a pretty experiential thing.
I'll say, and a wonderful experience, yeah. I must admit.
Well, thank you. It is wonderful, which is why I've even followed it for 20 years right. and just made it part of my own practice as an actor and as a writer and as a general artist. It offers the opportunity to step out momentarily out of your limiting sort of self-concept. I'm Joseph, you're Martin, but is that really who we are? Is that all of who we are? I mean, that's something we've developed over years of our story and our history, but what would it mean to walk each other? To walk, is it possible even to walk in another's shoes? I mean, that old Indian adage, you can never know a man until you walk a mile in his moccasins.
Right.
What does that mean exactly? Is it just thinking about what it's like to be another person? Well, what if you could really do it?
Right.
And that's somewhat of how it began. It started with a mentor of mine named John Cogswell, who I was working with years ago, and he had me try this exercise. He says, well, just get up, since I'm an actor, I was working on a role at the time. He says, don't think about how to do this. Just get up and say that you are now the other person, and walk with that intention. Physically move in the space and see what that means, see what happens in your body. And I was trained in a very different mode. I was a method-trained actor, used emotional recall and imagination and various things. And here was this spontaneous exercise where I was just moving, saying, okay, I am now this other person. And I started to experience all kinds of sensations in my body, noticing my psyche was changing, certain unconscious impulses were coming up. And the trick was to just follow those and keep exploring that, and explore spontaneously, without imitation, without calling on pre-existing knowledge, just be in the moment. And it was a miraculous kind of shift where I got all this information that I just didn't have prior to that moment. So I said, this is really fascinating. Couldn't we try practicing this? So we started a group with a bunch of other artists, and eventually that moved into the psychology. He brought in his colleagues in the psychology world, and we started doing these workshops and seminars and developing it as a process. And, you know, I've never been able to quite give up on it. It's just one of those things that was so powerful that it became part of my life. And I've done workshops over the years with other actors, writers, filmmakers, because that's my realm. But in the psychology world, people use it in their therapy practices to help people become more fully who they are. Empathy is a great tool, you know, and a great gift.
Can you define empathy for me?
What is empathy?
It's not a word that I really use. I do hear it, but it's not sort of something that...
I think it's bandied about a lot, you know.
Well,
what does empathy mean? For me, it means feeling as or with someone else. Sympathy is having feelings about the other person. Feelings, well, I'm sorry for that person, or I can sense how they are. But if I say, I'm going to feel with you in this moment, I'm going to share your experience. When we use the walking in your shoes process, that's exactly what we're doing in a very spontaneous, physical way. You literally stand up and you say, I am now you, another person. And you say, and then you start to walk around the space. And you just listen in and see, what does that mean? What does it mean to be this other person? And the miraculous thing is that the accuracy with which the experience what it engenders is very high. People immediately start seeing another person experience who they are. Recognize life themes and emotions and thoughts and feelings, and you may not even know this other person prior to that moment. So the question is, how can this be happening? How can this be happening? And that leads to certain spiritual, existential questions. About, you know, is this possible? Is this just an illusion or a mirage? I've been doing this for 20 years, and I've seen people make enormous breakthroughs in their own life issues as well as their creativity. Just by using this simple, intentional practice of getting up, being in the void, being in the space, the gap, so to speak, and letting the information come from there. What is happening? What is happening in that space? And walking in your shoes is a practice that can just help you get more familiar with being in that space and learning to trust it.
Well, I know since we can't walk because we're mic'd up.
I
wish we could.
Talking about it is like talking about meditation.
Exactly, right. Well, you know, that's what's so cool. But maybe there's a way, let me just see, because there's a couple things I would like to ask you questions on. This was hard for me, and I said this to you even during, to really let go of me, of Martin, was hard. How does one, and I've heard even in the spiritual realms that I'm in, oh, you have to empty yourself. You have to let go of your personal ego. How does one do that? How does one do that in the class, in the workshop? What are your thoughts on that, or what are your techniques of getting someone to let go of that?
The only thing I know for sure is you know, how do you empty yourself, become nothing, become the emptiness,
that's
blah, blah.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, we go around most of our lives with it, this is me, this is me, this is me in this moment, reinforcing that sort of idea. Of course, the question is, who are you, though, really?
Exactly.
Is this all you are? I don't know. I don't know who I am. You don't know who you are.
I think I know. That's what I mean, right?
In this given moment. So how do we approach a kind of emptying of that, a loosening of that? The walking helps. And what I always tell people is, stay present. Stay present with what is right now, in this moment. Listen to your body. We always say, go back to the body. The body is present. Whereas up here, is not, we're in the future, we're in the past, we're goofing around, but the body is present. You can trust that. And it'll bring you into the present, I suppose, not unlike breathing practice in a meditation. You breathe and you're present. And when you're present, I think really present, there's less qualities of grasping to this is me, this is who I am, this is what I have to be. You're just present. And the quality of being present doesn't necessarily have those limiters. It could be, you can be anything. So I recommend being present as much as one can. And in the walking practice, I say, listen, you can get up before you start this, state your intention to be another person, or a character, or a condition, or whatever it is you're exploring. And you can loosen up and wriggle out and get the tension out and then go and be focused and be present. But also, don't put too much attention on that either. Because you can sort of over-identify with, now I'm being present, now I'm holding on to the emptiness. Just get up and go. Be present. That's the best I can recommend.
Well, no, that's what I found so fascinating, because I've heard about all these things, but your thing, because it doesn't claim to be I mean, maybe it does, maybe in your mind it is, it doesn't claim to be a spiritual experience, and it doesn't claim to be like a church, and it doesn't claim to be like, a mosque or a synagogue or this place, but being in that room and that work, to me, was like Holy Communion. I mean, it felt to me all the time like there was really intense there.
I absolutely agree with you. It's again one of the reasons I've kept at it and made it part of my own. Giving the workshop is just part of my practice. It's a way to check in, once a week, and be with people. We work, as you know, in a circle. Everybody has value there. It's not just the guru spouting about stuff. It's let's do this very practical thing, and practice it. And when someone gets up to walk, it has a quality of sacred, if you will. It has a quality of we're very present. We're focused on what that person is doing. In a way, we're holding the space for the work to happen. And there's a sense of risk, even danger, in that we don't know what's going to happen, and empowerment and support. And that's very sacred to me. I mean, who isn't really looking for that in one way or another? It's cathartic. Theater, which is my background, is about the catharsis. And to me, that walking practice is like the essence of that theatrical experience. Someone gets up, they're saying, I'm now this, I'm you, I'm it, I'm all of it, I'm this, my character, and they start moving and walking and experiencing. We're right there. We're right there, and we're receiving it, and I think probably we're giving it.
Oh, certainly.
We're supplying some of that consciousness for the person to work with. So it has the essence of sacred, of the spiritual, but I like it because it's practical. You can practice this. It's doable, and maybe that's the most spiritual thing of all. Is that it's not out in some fantasy land. We can do it. Some people get up and they'll walk the guru. They'll walk the Christ. They'll walk Satan, if you will. They'll walk states of being that we have lots of taboos about. And the fact that the walking process is practical, you get up, you listen to the body, you experience, you explore, you push through resistances, and you expand your consciousness.